The panel that we'll be having today, I think it's actually the most important one. So what we will seek to answer is, what do we mean by tech sovereignty? And what does it really mean for you as innovators? Without boring you with a lot of theory, in South Africa, we all know we have this, what we call the triple challenges. The challenges mainly of unemployment, stagnant economic growth, and the social issues. One of the things that is very clear in South Africa is we don't lack the ability to produce our own technologies and knowledge. But what we've seen in the years, at least as long as I've been around, we consume technologies from other countries. We are good at producing, at taking out things from the ground, if I make mining an example, and we export them. We do the same thing with knowledge. If we look at the IP that comes out of our universities, it usually gets commercialized elsewhere. And what that does is that it grows other economies. We export knowledge, we export raw materials. Value is added in other countries, which means jobs are added in other countries. It means the economy grows in other countries, and that vicious circle continues. Now, where do you fit in? With the technology that comes out of the universities and the IP that comes out of these universities, it's usually, if we look elsewhere in Americas and in countries where innovation systems work, is that these technologies are commercialized by entrepreneurs like yourselves. And they go into market, new industries are created, and which is something that I think we can do better in South Africa.
So when you look at the issue of the word sovereignty, it's not about the chips or the cables, it's about the data we produce. And where does the data reside? So for me, tech sovereignty is not about not innovating. I guess we'll have those innovations for yourself. But who produces this data and where does it reside? We have 65 million South Africans generating data in one form or another each day. And it has to belong somewhere. It can't be rented in another country. And that's, for me, is the first establishment of tech sovereignty. Say, data produced in South Africa by South Africans should reside within South Africa.
The issue of national security becomes very important. And where your data resides and what other countries can do with it becomes a very important thing. So it's not just localizing technology. The issue of localizing data and technology becomes very key for our security as a country, or otherwise we can be shut down. We've seen what happened in Russia.
First is Liquid, which has 30,000 kilometers of fiber together with satellite, subsea cables, and a whole lot of other forms of actually carrying the data. The second part is Africa data centers, where we have 3 data centers, top-tier data centers, I should say, in South Africa. And pretty much all the hyperscalers, Visa, MasterCard, all the banks, all reside in our facilities. The third business, which I'm excited to speak about, is our newest business, which is Cassava AI. This is a partnership with NVIDIA, where we've invested in 2,000 plus GPU chips. So ultimately, when you talk about supercomputing, you speak about data, it cannot be in an island, and it cannot be in a vacuum, because ultimately, when you think about the masses of the volume of the data, you think about the velocity at which the data hits you, you think about the variety of the data coming from different sources, you definitely need the supercompute power in order to derive the benefit in real time. So really, when you ask the question around what is technical digital sovereignty, there's no single answer, to be quite honest, because we live in an environment where technology is converged. It's a convergence between a multiplicity of different things that all comes together in an ecosystem to provide an output in real time. You can't do the analytics, you can't do any of those things. If you can't store the data in a safe environment, you have a different problem, because cybersecurity is critically important. And if you don't have the GPUs and other computational power to actually drive the outcomes that you desire, you can't provide the customer centricity in real time. So therefore, the connectivity is as important as the application. The application is important in terms of security, but also in terms of the data in order to get the analytics. So the short answer to your question is, we live in a converged environment. The converged technology coming together is what provides the output, and therefore you need sovereignty in different areas in order to make sure that you control the data. Because where your data, for example, resides offshore, and if somebody decides that through a decree or otherwise they're going to switch off the data tap, you have no business. That's the reality. So whether you're in the public sector or the private sector, when people think about security, we often think about physical security. But more importantly, what is your tech security? I made the point that if your data resides outside of South Africa, you have no control because somebody could switch it off, then you wake up tomorrow morning and you might not be able to see it. Fact. In our data center in Cape Town, where we've invested in more than 2,000 GPUs, we control the data. So when you talk about sovereignty with supercompute, where the data resides in South Africa, that brings me to the next point. How do we now start creating an ecosystem of AI startups working with data? Because you can't have the discussion around AI without understanding data. Without data, you have no AI.
So the reason and all the technology we produce so far is South African. It's built in South Africa, and we collaborate with other African universities. So I would say that I proudly say 100% of whatever we build in South Africa is used globally today, but it's owned by Africans. And we will never ever compromise on that. The same youth that I look at today can do the same. So that's really what we are, we're a catalyst. But to answer your question of sovereignty, it must start at the point about who produces this data and where does it reside.